Hello and warm welcome to Media Week. Ahead on the program with the big fuss around Struggle Street this week. Just how did it rate in its first episode? Plus the friction between some online news providers. Our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, will be with us throughout the show for details. But first, as the media world continues to navigate a digital future, the name Yahoo is one that's been associated with online since the early days of the internet. Now operating in a joint venture with 7 West Media, the business must continue to adapt, recently announcing that its Yahoo 7 Sports app will be compatible with the new Apple Watch. Well, for more on just how they're building business in Australia, we're joined by Ed Harrison, Chief Executive of Yahoo 7, in the studio with us now. Ed, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
So kick it off with just how Yahoo's competing locally in terms of the size of its audiences this year.
Well, we're going very well. If you look at aggregate audience, we would be one of the larger players in market. There's no two ways about that. So we're very happy. But I think we look more granularly at the types of audiences that we have and what they're consuming. And our big strength is undoubtedly in mobile and it's in video. And those are the audiences that really matter to us.
Tell us about your video presence. Because you're in partnership with 7.
Yeah.
Is that the source of most of your video, or is it just one part of it?
A large part of it, and probably the most valuable part right now, and that's around our catch-up TV service, Plus 7. Been very successful over time. We do over 6 million streams every month. And we see plenty of opportunity to grow in that space. Similarly around short-form content, clips. Again, there's lots of opportunity to continue to grow that business, but it's a big part of our business now.
And the focus there, right, is for mobile, to make that compatible for mobile viewing?
Yes, so our business at the moment is going through enormous transformation. I mean, we're looking at moving away from a world that was predominantly desktop, based in banner advertising, to a world that's very mobile. The big consumer trends, those underlying consumer trends, are a move to mobile. The adoption of smartphone is now enormous, and also the time people are spending on social media. That has a bearing on how we seek and gain audiences to our network as well.
We hear a lot about, Plus 7, 10 Play have got theirs, Jump In at 9, the ABC and SBS both have catch-up TV properties. Lots of talk about how SVOD's going to impact in the market as well. What's your feeling? Is it too early to judge if there's been any changes in viewing habits in just this year, do you think?
Well, there's certainly been some changes in viewing habits. We see it all over the place. I mean, it's an enormous rising tide amongst that video on the line, whether it's subscription, transactional, or in our case, free and ad-funded, an enormous rise. We're also seeing an enormous rise in live consumption. A very good example of that would have been around the Australian Open. So we ran the app that covered the Australian Open through Plus 7, through our sports app. We saw over 4 million streams, majority live. And if you added together the amount of content consumed in that 2-week period, it comes to 42 years. And that's live content consumption. So we had people consuming, at the desks during the day, on public transport on the way home, at home, live at the event, and also often while they're watching television as well. So a very different experience that didn't exist before.
I just wanted to ask on that, do you think any of those free-to-air audiences are moving to catch up, do you think, or is it just another offering?
I think it's another offering. We're often seeing use of both devices in the home concurrently. And it's also bringing audiences back to that broadcast channel as well. So I think the two things, as I say, it very much operates as a rising tide for everyone.
Yeah, cross-promotion. So you mentioned the success of the Sport 7 app there. What do you think's driven that success?
In terms of sports generally, I think it's largely innovation, around providing users with better experiences. I mean, our latest one, last cab off the rank last week, was around the watch. So the Apple Watch. It's been interesting to watch that roll out, and we've made changes to our sports app that allow us to push scores through to the watch, so you can now sort of surreptitiously follow the results of your rugby team or whichever team it is you follow without interrupting the conversation with your friends.
Sit in a meeting at work and just check the scores.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it's still a relatively small market.
Of course.
Not a lot of people have got Apple Watches, but is it good to be there at the start of something like that?
Of course it is, and we are, we're known as a digital, innovative digital media business, and just being able to learn and experiment as these new devices come to market, it's a great place to be. So we're very proud of the fact we're in there.
Is your strategy any different, do you think, to anyone else's who's trying to sort of get that engagement with digital audiences and websites online?
Yeah, I think we've got a number of differences. I mean, the first thing is the speed at which we run at mobile. So say that emerging trend. We've got over 60% of our audience now comes to us through mobile devices. And we work very hard at that in a whole heap of different areas. We now design for mobile first. So we think about the mobile experience and then work back to desktop. And we've built out apps beyond +7. 7 News is a very strong app in market, as well as the sports app that we've mentioned. We also have big global properties, things like the Yahoo Mail app as well, which we do very well from. So I think we have quite a point of difference around those areas.
How do you go in that sort of online news offering? Because we talk every month about the latest Nielsen online news rankings, and everybody's always, you know, very, very focused on, oh, look, we want to get to the top or lift up the chart. How do you go in that space?
Well, the first thing to say is I think we're a little less caught up in that single metric than some of our competitors, a single measure of the success of our business. We have a very broad portfolio. Worth noting too, there are some challenges around the measurement of that category alone, what is news and what is not news. We know that as I say, we already have one of the strongest, if not the strongest, apps in market around news in 7 News, but we can build our offering further, and we're working with 7 right now to look at how we make best use of the content that's already available. We're a long, long way from the bottom of the barrel in terms of getting more content out of 7 and into our business and online, and that's a large part of that's an operational challenge, and it's something that we're working on.
So that relationship really important with 7. Have you noticed that Clive Dickens has made much of a difference since joining 7 as head of digital, at least in terms of your relationship?
Yeah,
as well?
it's I mean, it's giving us a real opportunity to get right inside 7, and his role clearly is to digitise the business and make sure that digital is at the centre of everything that they do. So that's, you know, that's fantastic for us, whether it's in the sales teams understanding that digital can sit at the centre of a larger sales proposition to advertisers, whether it's producers clipping up content early or thinking about the needs of online early in the piece, whether it's operational stuff like workflows that I just mentioned. Having somebody there who really understands digital, is passionate about digital and is driving that is a tremendously positive thing for us.
Just on that ad offer to the market, I mean, how much is bound up in a holistic offering, if you like, with 7 West, their platforms, and how often is it just you guys selling what you've got?
Yeah, it's a very, very important part of our offer, and we work very closely with the guys at 7. They have Red is the entity they use to go to market and talk to big advertisers.
And that includes their old media, if you like, plus all the Yahoo 7.
So absolutely. It's pulling together the strength of television, Pacific magazines, the West Australian, and of course the assets we have online, and presenting advertisers with a single offer, just making it easy for them and looking at how we use all those assets together. So that's a significant part of our business, and particularly important around the big hit shows and the reality shows, where we work very, very tightly in terms of giving advertisers solutions around those types of events.
All right, Ed, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Ed Harrison there, Chief Executive of Yahoo 7. Moving on now for a check on the media sector's performance on the share market this week, and there's been a couple of results out. News Corp, for one, saw its quarterly profit decline over 50%, but did see revenue gains in its digital real estate business. Similar sentiments as well for Fairfax, speaking at a conference with Domain remaining the crown jewels there. Well, for more, Evan Lucas joins us from IG. Evan, let's start with Fairfax. It making comments at a Macquarie conference, and it's all about the Domain business.
Yeah, it certainly is. Look, inside, if you have a look at revenue, it actually only says that revenue between January 1st this year and through to April 26, revenue's up roughly around about 1% on this period last year. Now, that's in line with actually what most analysts see. Yes, no doubt about it, Domain remains the crown in the jewel there, in the fact that they've seen around about 26, even as much as 28% in that range growth over Domain. They are doing quite nicely. So if you look inside the metro media space, they are seeing okay numbers in terms of what's coming out. We can see Domain. You can also see some of their print media doing a little bit better. You're also seeing their radios coming in as well. MMP has now been integrated along with Macquarie Radio. That's all been integrated. So that's where it is. The concern slightly from the analytical world is that costs appear that they could actually get a little bit bigger. A lot of people have a very conservative idea on costs, considering that obviously Fairfax has been cutting quite hard over the last couple of years. The result from what they announced looks like it will probably satisfy most people. So far this week we've seen Fairfax actually up slightly, despite the fact that the market as a whole is under real pressure. So obviously well and truly met with a little bit more positiveness than negativeness. The only concern is community radio is actually, and community newspapers are also the one part that is dragging that, and that's why they're only getting 1% growth.
And And for News Corp, Evan, it did see gains for digital real estate as well, but wasn't enough to offset declines elsewhere.
Yeah, and they also alluded to very much to the REA group being under pressure from the fact that domestically we had some seasonality issues inside it. New South Wales election, along with the Queensland election, they believe had a bit of a downward move. And then again, it gets back to the headache that is becoming the publishing arm. It's still not really getting ahead. We're looking into into Foxtel. Foxtel also was a little bit weak, only $8 million there in revenue. Expectations was about 15, as much as 20. So there were just slight disappointments across News Corp, and it continues to sort of be a little bit of a sap on growth. We know about their media assets and the fact that they are still declining slightly. Rupert Murdoch's not overly that concerned, but it's just not a good look at this point in time in the cycle. But
21st Century Fox did beat expectations with its numbers.
They certainly did indeed, and again it gets back to their cable and also what's going on in their new News Corp as well, in their news division as well. Cable was fantastic, along with their films. Really strong numbers there. Huge amount of revenue growth. They are certainly also talking up the idea that this whole cable cutters that are out there with their competition of Netflix and other providers over in the US are actually just basically noise to them. They haven't seen a huge decline. Sport is also a major reason why they're doing incredibly well. They've got a lot of contracts there, and we are coming up on new seasons in the NFL as well. Also, they get a very big kick out of what goes on in the basketball playoffs. So they've seen a lot of that on the other side. So cable, film, still a major player there. News is doing okay, and that's why they had a very good number, record for the fourth quarter. So very much a happy day over there, and why Chase Carey and Rupert Murdoch have got smiles.
All right, Evan, thanks so much for that update.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Evan Lucas there from IG. Back to James Manning now, editor and publisher of Mediaweek, for more on this space. It seems to be all about digital real estate for both Fairfax and News Corp.
Yeah, look, it's going to be a fascinating battle, isn't it, between the assets of both Domain and REA for News Corp. How they go this year. Big demand on a lot of their assets still, and look, the latest rate cut too. It's been predicted that's going to help the housing market continue to sort of be very strong. The moves we've seen at Domain recently about giving equity to agents, they're spreading that into their commercial division now. What sort of impact is that going to have on the sector? So yeah, it's just going to be a fascinating one to watch this year.
Yeah, it will indeed. All right, we do have to take a quick break now on Mediaweek. Coming up next, though, a lot of fuss around the debut of Struggle Street this week. We'll find out how it rated, along with the Block finale last week. Back in a moment.